What up, DC? What up, Magic City? All right, let's see if I can find some video. Yes, Young Turks did a piece. Oh, Real News did a piece. Let's see what the Real News had to say. Eddie Conway.
Welcome to this edition of Rallying Bars. I'm Master Moose, the co-host with Eddie Conway. Eddie Conway is doing good. Eddie Conway's health has been proven, and hopefully at some point in time, Eddie Conway will make a cameo appearance at the program that he started and the network that he loved. Alabama prison system is on strike. Now, I'm gonna list a few things that encapsulate why they would be on strike. The failure of the Alabama correction system to protect inmates from violence and sexual abuse, the failure to protect them from excessive force by staff, and the failure to provide safe conditions of confinement, alleging the violation of the Eighth Amendment right. Now, this would be some of the issues that anyone would say that the entire prison system is on strike about, and that these would be the things that they would be alleging. But what I just listed is what the Department of Justice is alleging in a suit they
Doing all
filed
right, Ali.
against
How
the
you feeling?
Alabama correction institutions in 2020. Here to talk about what's going on in the heart of the South and the prison industrial complex in the heart of the South is Mike Sarnado. Michael, introduce yourself to the Rallying the Bars viewers, and you were no stranger to it, but go ahead and
Of
introduce
course,
yourself
Magic
again,
City.
please.
No problem.
Well, my name is Michael Sinato. I'm a reporter for the Guardian and the Real News Network. I cover mostly labor issues, but I cover prison labor issues as well. And I reside in Gainesville, Florida.
All right, now let's just go right into the issue. What's the update on the prison strike, statewide prison strike, mind you, in the state of Alabama? What's the update on it before we go into the details of the why, if there's any update to be offered?
So the strike started yesterday, and the Alabama Department of Corrections, admitted all major prisons have experienced varying degrees of workers on strike. So the jobs that are on strike are prisoners who have to work in food prep and the kitchen services, and the maintenance and cleaning services. And you mentioned a couple of the issues behind the strike. Um, the Department of Justice a few years ago ruled that the Alabama prison system is violating the Constitution, violating human rights because of the poor conditions. And just a couple of years ago, they filed a lawsuit because the state of Alabama hasn't corrected or fixed anything. And they still haven't. It's 4 years since that issue was first brought up by the Department of Justice, and the only thing that Alabama has done is started to construct new prisons, but those won't even be open till for another 3 or 4 years. So I think one of the biggest issue behind the strikes is that
Am I gonna play
paroles
Overwatch 2? Maybe.
just aren't being granted at all. The couple of the organizations behind this strike have noted that 97% of parolees have been denied parole. So it seems that
IFAC
parole
stuff. That's
boards are
cool,
just
Ali.
outright denying parole for those in prison for cases that shouldn't be denied at all, and that comes into play. Alabama has some really harsh sentencing laws. They have like a 30-year minimum for juvenile offenders. People are getting life sentences for non-violent crimes. There's a lot of issues.
Right, and in that regard, right, one of the things that
What
the
up,
supporters
Selassie?
of the strikers are asking for is the repeal of the Habitual Felony Offender Act, which is contributing to what you just talked about as far as creating a draconian and inhumane sentencing that leads to the prison population being overcrowded. But let's talk about some of the things that the Justice Department found, and more importantly, this report, the Justice Department filed a suit. The court has already ruled that ain't nothing going to take place. Nothing is going to take place in regard to the suit until 2024, where they'll have a trial on the issues. Now, mind you, we're talking about the Justice Department has cited these conditions that exist. Violence. Alabama had one of the most violent prisons in prison system in the country. I think they say like 30% of every 100,000 prisoners are killed in Alabama prisons. That means that everybody in the maximum and medium security prison in Alabama, when they go in these systems, they expect some sort of violence to take place. The Justice Department cited in the women's prison, cited that 30% of the women in the medium and maximum security prisons are molested by the officers.
That's fucked up.
That the prisons are overcrowded. This is a Justice Department study that they came out and said this and sued in this regard. So why is it that we're at the stage right now where the prison population is forced to have a strike in order to get redress or get attention to the problem when it's already been noted? Why are we having this intransigent attitude from the state towards remedying these problems?
Well, you have
What up, Sherman? It's all good.
Governor Kay Ivey and the Alabama Republicans who are in power, who are either have been dismissive of the issues within their prison systems. They've denied and disputed claims from the Department of Justice, and this goes back to, I mean, this was the Department of Justice under the Trump administration that
Exactly.
crossed out. So and these are human rights violations. So
Right.
there's really been no swift actions being taken to address these problems. And with these parole denials and these harsh sentencing laws, overcrowding's getting worse. And that fuels violence, and it's not just prisoner on prisoner. There's a video out today that was released of prison guards just assaulting a prisoner, ridiculously. It's just a warning, if you do go on social media and look for where you're watching it, it's pretty brutal. And a prisoner was reported to have died in Alabama prisons today. They were tied up and found assaulted. So you have a lot of these vast issues within the prison system, and it's just untenable. And they keep kicking the can down the road and saying it's going to be addressed in a few years, but these human rights violations are occurring now, and they're harming people now. It's not just those in prison, it's people who are their families who are concerned for the well-being and safety and want their family members to be released, or at least protected and adequately provided for, and that's just not being the case. There's been some meals, especially recently, of what they're served, and it's basically inedible. Get a couple pieces of bread and some peanut butter. Some prisoners didn't even get any lunch yesterday, and these are just
Wow.
ongoing violating human rights violations, and I think there needs to be a lot swifter action taken from the federal government to
Right.
move in.
That's really what I'm kind of taken back by is that when you have the federal government comes in and cite human rights violation and Eighth Amendment violation, and then file litigation on behalf of the uh, plaintiffs, it stands to reason that this is more like a knee-jerk reaction than being more assertive, because you have the authority and the power to be more forceful. You have the authority and the power to have a more concrete action take place. But let's talk about some of the, it's 13 prisons, major prisons in the state of Alabama. Not, these are all max and medium security prisons. And they're talking about, and the major prison that they was talking about is Holman Correctional Facility, and Holman Correctional Facility is in Escambia and County of Alabama, and that's the one prison that they're talking about building another facility in this county. Talk about how these prisons in general are being utilized to create the infrastructure for the economy for these rural counties.
These rural counties they're placed in these areas where they're not seen by the majority of the population, and these small towns rely on these prisons economically for jobs. So there's economic incentives to maintain and grow the mass incarceration system in the U.S., because you have rural areas that have experienced declines in job loss, are dealing with economic issues and rural poverty, and these prisons are always kind of sold and brought and idolized by local politicians in these areas and local governments and just the local communities. They're not seen as they don't address the prisoners for the people they are, and the impacts on them and their families and their communities. It's seen as just an economic engine for this mass incarceration system. And those new buildings are being built not only in regards to the human rights violations, but because the current prisons are just, the infrastructure is so bad that they can't renovate them, that it's not even possible. So they have to develop entirely new buildings. But in the meantime, this poor infrastructure, this inadequate infrastructure, this overcrowding is being used, and prisoners in Alabama right now are subjected to that, are being forced in that environment.
I hear a cat.
Under really bad conditions. We've seen it over the years. Every summer, the lack of air conditioning, the lack of inadequate edible food. I've heard that from every time I've spoken with someone who's done time in Alabama. That's a huge issue. Alabama has it relies on prison labor to keep these prison services running, and local communities depend on that prison labor too. I had an article come out in the Guardian today. I kind of want to talk about Alabama and a few other states in November. It's on the ballot. They have a ballot initiative to end the exception to the 13th Amendment of the these
sounds pretty crucial, y'all.
Ballot initiatives are focusing on state constitutions. So our U.S. Constitution has that exception to slavery. Slavery is abolished except for those in prison. In state institutions have adopted that. And there's local movements in a lot of states right now. Three have already removed this exception clause. Rhode Island, Utah, and I can't recall the third one right now, but
Mm-hmm.
Alabama is one of these states that in November voters will decide on whether to keep or get rid of that clause. And the strike right now that's going on that has to do with those jobs. These workers are getting paid to work maintenance and kitchen and food service jobs that outside in the normal world you'd be getting
Minimum wage at least.
minimum wage at least, and they're lucky if they're getting any income at all from working in these jobs that they're not getting the same protections, breaks, or things like that. They don't have any agency over when you're working in these jobs, and these prisons run on their labor, so they're withholding that labor to put pressure on Alabama's politicians to address these widespread issues throughout the system that the Department of Justice and civil rights groups and criminal justice reform groups have been calling out and pushing and pressuring for action. And the leaders in Alabama have been dragging their feet or refusing to address or even acknowledge the huge problems within this prison system.
And you know what? And I was listening to some of the interviews that was being offered by the Alabama governor, uh, Governor Kay, I think her name is, and she responded by saying that uh, she's not going to release, and then she went to the people that have been found guilty of committing what might be considered some of the most horrendous crimes. So she goes to the playbook. This is the playbook for creating hysteria. We're not going to release robbers, murderers, rapists, child molesters, and back in society.
Kev?
But from what I'm gathering, the issues that the prisoners and their families are talking about are treating people like human beings. And I think for our listeners and our viewers, we want to emphasize this point right here, that according to law, your sentence is your punishment. What you're sentenced to is your punishment. From that point on, when you enter into a correctional facility or institution, from that point on, you're starting to be reformed and changed so that you can ultimately return back to society. But as far as Alabama prison system is concerned, and the governor and everyone is in cahoots with this, that the more violent the prisons are, the more atrocious the conditions are, the better it is for them in terms of building more prisons, monetizing the labor of prisoners, and using these industrial complex in Alabama to create an infrastructure for the survival of like little small rural counties in rural Alabama. But talk about some of the things going on with the prisoners and some of the things going on with them in terms of your overview of what's going on with them prior to and at this juncture right now.
Okay, well, the prison strike is still going on today. That started yesterday. There hasn't been, it's indefinite, so I believe it's still going to continue until at least some of their demands are met, and there really doesn't seem to have been.
What up, Aston? So this is about the Alabama prisoner strike. But this is going to be part of like a larger conversation about how the prison industrial complex is modern day slavery. Slavery still exists in America. A lot of local townships, economies are dependent on slave labor still. He's, giving us all the details about
like you said, from the governor, they're kind of dismissing these demands and the calls and the issues that they're dressing out, and
I hope
that
so,
tends
though.
to happen, in when strikes occur. They're a last resort. Withholding their labor, it's a tactic. It's a difficult thing for any worker to do, especially in prison, because they are reporting and experiencing retaliation, whether that's not getting any meals, or just getting even worse, inadequate meals compared to what they're used to. Because right now you have the correctional officers doing the work of the kitchen, so that's why we've been seeing just a couple slices of bread
It's
and a
all
carton,
goofy.
a little pint of milk, and a
Thanks,
little
Jerson.
peanut butter as a meal, which is really inadequate and disgusting, and kind of just another example in the numerous examples of human rights violations within these prisons. um, and it's difficult because the families, when these conditions, because of the retaliation that they're possibly subjecting themselves from correctional officers and from the prison. It's really up to the people in charge of the prison, their kind of access to the public in terms of speaking out to. So I'm still trying to get in touch with family members and organizers that are leading this out. So you have family members and organizers leading rallies and protests in conjunction with the strike to kind of make sure the public is aware of what's going on, and they're posting cell phone videos that are being taken secretly, because
Mhm.
um, they're not supposed to have cell phones, and not supposed to, they can get in a lot of trouble. They can get assaulted and wind up in solitary confinement
For
if
sure,
they're
Beckett.
caught doing this. So they're taking enormous risks, these prisoners, to not only go out on strike, but to continue on with the strike despite the internal pressures from the abusive correctional officers, and the system in general, to raise awareness of these issues. And like you said, with the governor and a lot of Republican elected officials, a lot of police, they really go to the vilifying and overgeneralizing, kind of portraying, there's that these are monsters, that these are violent, criminals, when you look at the data, that most of the people within prisons do not fit the characterizations, the often racist
Yeah, and a lot of people are in jail waiting on trial, so they haven't even been convicted of it. That's another thing.
generalizations, and the fear mongering that
Mhm.
these elected officials and all these police kind of go out to do. And it's not just in Alabama; they do that all over the country. We've seen it in their
Right.
cities. The conservatives are trying to make it seem like they're lawless areas, and some of the things that these people have said and claimed are just outright just ridiculous. There's no substance or truth behind them, but that's what the communities pushing for reform and changes are up against, is these systems that are meant to perpetuate and instill fear in the public, to undermine any efforts for change.
Right, and I think that when we do an overview of the Alabama prison system, uh, it epitomized the prison industrial complex and the 13th Amendment in regard to slavery. Talk about the what's going on with the families. I know they suspended visits, uh, but talk about if you got any read on how what the families are, how the families are feeling, or where the families stand, because we know that their loved ones are being subjected, even right now, to some cruel and unusual punishment as a result of the strike. We know they're going to try to break the strike. I was in an environment where we was on lockdown for uh, 9 months, and for the nine months, they gave us a bag, they gave us one cereal, 2 pieces of bread, milk, and a fruit in the morning. Gave us bologna and cheese for lunch, some kind of fruit, and then dinner they gave us some kind of
Just to answer you really quick, Aston, the white dude, the journalist, is a journalist from, I think he said he's from Florida, who is working with the Real News. Where I have my head is obscuring the news logo, but this is the Real News Network. They're based here in Baltimore. This particular segment you can see up in the top right corner there. This segment's called Rattling the Bars, and it's about specifically about prison injustice and prison reform. It was a segment started by Eddie Conway, the great Eddie Conway. I'm sure you've heard me say his name a million times on this platform. Someone I have deep respect for. He was one of the founders of the Baltimore Black Panther Party. And he does a lot of work, a lot of jail solidarity work, and a lot of community work here in Baltimore. And he was sick, and he hasn't been doing this segment himself for a while. But this is his segment. The white journalist, the dude from Florida, his name is Mike Sinato. He does a lot of journalism on prison like injustice, and the gentleman you see before you is a man named Mansa Musa, who is the host of Rattling the Bars, who hosts this segment now for the Real News Network.
cold meat, and they did this for like 9 months straight. Talk about the families. Have you been able to get? I know you say you try and get in contact with them. Have you been able to get in contact with the supporters, that's, or anybody that can give us a read on where the families are and what we can do to like help this, what the viewers of Rally the Bars can do to help bring attention to this horrendous problem that's taking place in the Deep South.
So, in regards to the families, there's been some comments out in local press in Alabama. The families are obviously, concerned, but very supportive of the strike and have been participating in protests and rallies in support of the demands, and really backing their demands in addressing the current conditions in the prisons and the various harsh sentencing and denial of parole for those in Alabama prisons. So one of the organizations leading this strike is called the Free Alabama Movement. They've been posting on Twitter, on social media. So if you go on there, you can watch some of the videos that are coming out, some of the latest developments of the strike, some of the latest news, and kind of you can get involved with that. You can share and just kind of keep raising awareness, because I think on the outside, what this organization is trying to do is to get the public aware of what's happening in the prisons as much as possible to enable this strike to have as much pressure on elected officials and as much awareness on the problem. And if basically embarrass Alabama Republicans into actually taking action, because they've had plenty of time, they've had years now to they're fully aware of the problems, and nothing's being done. And the only from the federal government, like you said, it's going to take years for the courts to intervene. So these people don't have that kind of time to continue enduring what they're being forced to deal with on a daily basis.
There you have it, the real news about Sweet Home Alabama, the Deep South, the home of the Confederacy, slavery in its purest form, in the form of Alabama correction system. We know now that the state of Alabama and the governor and everyone that's behind this horrendous treatment of people. We recognize that 300 people have been killed every 300,000 out of 100,000, that the women are being molested, and everything the governor is saying about the people in there, her
I'm gonna
staff
play
is
Gundam after
inflicting this
this.
kind of hard, cruel treatment on people. Mike, you got the last word on this.
So the Free Alabama movement is one of the organizations that are kind of leading the strike on the outside in terms of sharing videos from those on the inside and kind of giving the public any updates in terms
What
of
up,
what's
Antithesis?
going on and how they're being responded to. So I think it's really important to continue to share those videos, support them, follow the strike, and support
Yeah, I feel it.
media outlets that are actually paying attention to it, because it's not something that mainstream media outlets like CNN, Fox News, they're never going to mention this. Despite when you have similar conditions or similar issues in countries like China or Russia or anything like that, there's a lot more attention brought to those issues. But when human rights violations are occurring in our own backyard, and something as rare and just the issues behind it, behind this strike, like I said, it's not just like a strike on the outside. These people are really putting I don't think it's their lives on the line to kind of call attention to the issues they're facing and the abuses within the system. So, I think it's really important. I implore the public to continue educating themselves about these issues and continue, it's not going to be a story that's going to be kept, being put in front of you like, things in the mainstream media. It's not the queen's funeral. It's not going to get that kind of attention. So it really comes down to individuals participating and getting involved and educating themselves and educating others, and getting involved with the activism and pushing for these changes and pushing back on the fear mongering and the dismissals and just the silence
Hi, Undyne.
from those with powerful platforms and those who have the power to actually take actions to resolve these demands.
There you have it, the real news. We need to keep an eye on what's going on in Alabama. We need to be aware of what's being done to people. These are human beings that are being subjected to the cruel and the unusual punishment, whose life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness is always at jeopardized. We want to encourage all the real news listeners and all the Rally the Bar viewers to educate yourself on what's going on in Alabama and take a stand on what's going on in Alabama. Whether you agree with the strike or not, you should agree with that. Human beings should be treated as human beings. Thank you, Mike, for this enlightening conversation and this interview, and we look forward to your follow-up on this. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Monta.
And I encourage everyone to continue to support the real news. This is not the alternative. This is not an alternative to the news. So this is actually the news being given to you real. You will never hear nothing about Alabama prison system on your major networks that Mike outline. You'll never hear nothing about what's going on within the general society at large. You only hear these things on the real news, and more importantly, you'll hear these things on Rattling the Bars. Thank you very much. On behalf of Eddie Conway, have a great day.
That was the real news. I'll drop the link for you. in chat. The Alabama prison strike. Let me blow this up. Alabama prison strike has entered its second week as inmates continue to protest the state's parole and sentencing laws and living conditions inside facilities. On September 26, inmates in all Alabama Department of Corrections prisons stopped working. Inmates normally do the work in food service, laundry, and other tasks that keep prisons running. Alabama is one of only 7 states, including Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, South Carolina, and Texas, that do not pay inmates for labor. Wow, so they don't even pay people there. So this whole time, I was thinking Angola was bad just because the optics are bad, and at least those prisoners are fucking getting paid. Wild. Shannon Barlow, an inmate at Limestone Correctional Facility, told WBHM, "There's no hope, there's no promise of a future. We're the ones basically who have been holding the ceiling up over our own heads all these years, and we're just waking up to the fact that this is wrong." According to WVTM, specific asks from the strikers include the immediate repeal of Alabama's habitual offender law, a repeal of the state's drive-by shooting statute, mandatory parole criteria that guarantees parole for all eligible inmates, and ending life without parole sentences. Last week, Governor Ivey called the demands unreasonable and said she hopes her plan to create 2 new mega prisons using COVID relief funds will help address some of the inmates' needs. So they're just saying, we're just going to build a bigger prison for you. Number 1, our goal is for public safety, pure and simple. The demands that they're giving are just unreasonable and would probably require whole other legislation. Thank you for the like. And would probably require whole other legislation, cannot just be mandated unilaterally. We still got our 2 prisons being built so we can better provide for the safety of the inmates as well as the work. Meanwhile, inmates say corrections workers and officials are taking retaliatory measures against them, including reducing the amount of food they receive from 3 meals a day to 2, and canceling weekend visits due to these stoppages and the impact on staff resources. In an interview with AL.com, Dion Caldwell, founder of the advocacy group Both Sides of the Wall and a strike organizer, said she believes canceling visitation will increase tensions. "I think canceling visitation will only compound the frustration inside," Caldwell said. I mean, obviously. "These men/women look forward to seeing their family. This is the only contact they physically have with them, and this is why a lot of them stay out of any trouble. Many families have taken off work, paid for travel and hotels in preparation of visitation this weekend, and they abruptly cancel it because they want to punish the men/women inside for exercising our First Amendment. They are doing exactly what they have been doing for so long, which is trying to maintain control through loss of privileges for no misconduct, retaliation, and fear." The Department of Justice sued Alabama in December 2020, alleging the failure to protect prisoners from inmate-on-inmate violence and sexual abuse, failure to protect them from excessive force by staff, failure to provide safe conditions of confinement, violate constitutional prohibitions on cruel and unusual punishment. The DOJ first made most of the allegations in April 2019 and said at the time of the lawsuit that Alabama had failed to address problems. However, a trial in the case is not expected in 2024. So they're not even going to litigate this case until 2024. So basically they're saying, fuck y'all. Y'all got to live like that at least until for the next 2 years. Or a year and 2 months, whatever. Wild shit, yo. Let's play some Gundam. Let's fuck around with the Gundam. Yeah, public safety. Y'all know how I feel about prisons and police and all that shit on this stream. But yeah, that reporter's name was Michael Sonato. Try to look him up. I found his Twitter, I think. Yep, found his Twitter. I'll DM you. Austin. I can do something. Put the good people of Twitch on so they don't have all this fucking goofy shit. They're saturated to pay attention to some real shit. And that's some real shit. Can I also just say how fucking disappointed I am? I know I'm really supposed to talk shit over. I just gotta say how fucking disappointed I am. A conversation that was supposed to be about how we support survivors of abuse and rehabilitate members of our community became a conversation about streamers talking shit about each other. Very fucking disappointing. The shirt, thank you. Yeah, the people there's gotta be there's a better way to deal with crime and uh you know, I guess dangerous people. There's a better way to deal with them than to just lock people up.
This is a destruction mission.
Work release gets capped for pay, $50 a month. That's fucking crazy. Ridiculous behavior, yeah. It's probably a whole 60 now, yeah.
Select the suit you wish to pilot.
It's crazy thinking about the fact that this shirt is for a game that's like 20 years old.
Thrusters high. Your mission is to defend the two objectives. Warning, enemy attack imminent. All hands to battle stations. Hostiles incoming.
Roger, Command. They won't get past us.
Pick your positions. They're coming.
The best Sonic game to date. Drink to that, brother. It's last time I. Yeah. Agreed. Still love your Sonic t-shirt? Yeah. I love this one. I bought this one last year. Can't front, it's not vintage. My Mega Man t-shirt that I was wearing on. That's vintage. I bought that shirt back.
The enemy has begun their assault.
Copy that, Command. We'll stop them.
Mission accepted. Mobilizing.
Show us your best work, pilot.
Enemy shield user spotted.
At least one kill.
Enemy sniper confirmed.
I fucking dropped that gun tank.
Hostile unit sighted. Enemy shield user spotted. Enemy flyer sighted.
Nah, it's the most important thing to keep in mind, Beckett, is that like I said,
Enemy flyer sighted.
every action at every turn that was taken with the interest of protecting
User spotted. Enemy flyer sighted.
the women involved. And people were made privy to specific information. Reason. And what was supposed to be, I guess, a teachable moment, now that it's been made public when it was never supposed to be. It's in the case of individuals. Now it's discourse and drama shit. People are fucking picking sides and shit. Which is the goofiest possible situation, especially if you know or care about either of the people. To the point where
Hostile unit sighted.
you're just like releasing sensitive, extremely sensitive personal information about it. Literally for no reason.
Hostile unit team maneuver active. Enemy shield spotted.
Fuck. That's the wrong button right there. Fuck. So,
Hostile flyer over here.
confused all throughout? Yeah. Like,
Allied unit down.
people, motherfuckers don't care about. Motherfuckers don't care about people's lives and what they go through. They experience. It's all just fucking. It's all just content.
Looks like they know where we are. Looks like they're trying to find our position.
I got too horny for that kill. I got too horny for it. My experience with Queen Alexa has been negative, but in the case of everything that's happening, yeah, I can respect how people have been moving,
Get out of range! Move!
understanding,
Look sharp!
understanding that part and playing it. You know what I mean? Glad we can all have a stopped clock moment type beat.
2, 1. Round
Had to get at least one more. Missouri's not well known for treating their inmates well. Shit, we had a full-on riot that did millions in damages about the same stuff Alabama's striking about. Sheesh. All they did was combine the two prisons. All the officers with experience either quit, retired, or transferred. They already warned next time they'll go after any and all staff. What up, Aston?
Gate is down! Let's go!
You're doing fine, pilot. Keep it up.
We'll get the job done, Command.
Copy that. Ready to engage.
Nah, this is better than Overwatch because it's not involved with Blizzard Activision in it. That weird ass, creepy ass, weird ass shit. I don't fuck with. That's that shit I don't like.
Preparations complete. Pilots, begin your assault.
Heading out.
Roger. I'll back you up.
Fight well, pilot.
What's good, Globus?
Enemy shield user spotted.
But it doesn't matter if you got receipts, right? Because motherfuckers will figure out a way to cape for man. Because someone's livelihood, someone's reputation was ruined. People were hurt. Their reputations were destroyed.
Fully captured the
Fuck out of
Enemy shield user spotted.
here. Bitch ass niggas. Truly coward ass, weak ass niggas.
Sniper spotted.
Behind me! Suit's not responding!
Setting the mega charge. Get to position, everyone.
Mega charge countdown has
Oh, we're
begun.
about to bust these cheeks. Yeah, this shit's ready to be exploded already. Oops, nope.
Almost got this.
Missed all my shit. It's right. It sucks. It's me, so that's cool. So I get to live. Dealt with. Load that shit up. Go ahead and GG him.
Another one for the record books.
I admit this was a team effort.
Yeah, nobody is doing any fun. Motherfuckers are just. And you know, I have this mutant power. I've been cursed with this X-Men ability to make goofy niggas show their ass. Aston knows what I'm talking about. Fade Runner definitely knows what I'm talking about. I just have this like mutant ability to like, I'm like the Purple Man from Marvel, you know what I mean? Except instead of controlling people's thoughts, I just make goofy niggas say and do goofy shit on command. I'm gonna say, hey yo, do something goofy right now. And every time, yo, just every time. So I to the point where I don't even consciously do it. I subconsciously do it. It's like Rogue, right? Like how she can't touch anyone because her power is just constantly turned on. I emit like a psionic wave. Like my brain emits a wave that like possesses goofy niggas, and it immediately is like, do something goofy right now. Do it. Be goofy. And every time. Hold up. You okay, you're proud of me for knowing you like that I know who Purple Man is? You can't see it. I'm gonna try and show it to you. I have a Night Thrasher. See that? Next to Black Jesus? That's a Night Thrasher poster on my wall. So yeah. You could say I know some stuff about Marvel. You're going to New York Comic Con later this week? That's fine.